Hi everyone, it's Lori from the Paper Attic, and I'm going to show you how I do my albums and hinges. I've had a few requests for the hinges, and I'm just about to start a new album with the Graphic 45 Farmhouse. So hopefully I can, because I'm really bad at doing tutorials or trying to do tutorials. What happens is I start doing my album, and then after I get the cover done, the hinges done, the pages in, I go, oh, I was going to do a tutorial, or not so much pages in, but the pages done, and I'm already almost complete, and then I realize, oh, I should have done a tutorial. So I'm hoping I catch this now that I can do a tutorial for you. So first off, we're going to cut the chipboard for my album. I already know what my hinge size will be, so cutting the spine is fairly easy for me to do at this point. So my album is going to be 10 by 8.5 long, so 8.5 high, 10 inches long. So we're going to take an inch off the top of my cards, my chipboard, and so my pages are my pages will be 8 by 9, or 8 by 9. Okay, that's one, and then two. And I have, you're probably going, oh, look what she's doing for her cutter. I have a special track that I throw back into my cutter to do this, so that I'm not wearing out my tracks all the time. I was doing that at first. They were constantly being worn down and having to buy new ones all the time. So now we have our covers done, and the spine is 3 inches. All right. Okay, so now that we have that done, I'll take my track out and put the proper one in. I'll put that aside for a moment. So now we have to cut the cardstock and the tie-back for this. And I have, perfect. So I want my tie-back to be 5 inches. My hinge is 3, so I want my tie-back to be 5. So I have an inch on either side after I attach the spine. And then my cardstock, my wrap, will be 10 inches by, oh, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure of that. So let's have a guess. Okay. So when we lay these out, like so, we have, sorry, my screen's not wide enough here. That's that. Okay. And pan out a little bit more. Alright, so we have this. So we're going to lay them side by side, the way that we would put them together, with an eighth of an inch to 5 millimeters gap between the three pieces, like so. And now I'm going to take my cardstock. I'm going to put the middle piece down first, so I know what I have to do here. So we have, and that will be perfect. Perfect. So we have gaps on either side where we're going to wrap it, and then we'll take an inch off the top, and that will make it perfect height. And we only need 3 pieces for this. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to take my cardstock. I have 3, so I want to run a strip of 7mm silk-line tape up each side of the centerpiece. And the reason I do this is because I don't want any exposed tape on the other side, like after I put my second sheet on. So if I keep it on here, the odds of me having it bleed out onto the other sheet are pretty slim. So if it bleeds into the inside of the album, that's fine, but I don't want it to bleed out the other side. So my tape is as close as I can get it to the edge without going over the edge. Okay. And this side, it went over a hair, and I don't want it to. Okay, so I'm gonna. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to take one of our pieces and we're going to line it up with the bottom using the score tape as a guide. We're going to adhere it like so, and then we're going to burnish that. So like I said, it doesn't matter if a bit of the tape bleeds out on the inside of this, on the side that's facing you, but you don't want it to bleed out on this side. That's the side that will be exposed on the cover. Okay, so now we're going to attach the other side. And we're going to do it the same way, using the score tape as a guide to make sure we have nothing coming over that. Okay. And burnish. Okay. All right. So now we're going to do some lines, some guides on here. So what we need to do is, because I made this 10 inches this way, and the chipboard covers are 8.5 inches. We have 75 or 3/4 of an inch between the bottom of the cardstock and the bottom of the chipboard, and 3/4 of an inch from the top of the chipboard to the top of the cardstock. So we're going to measure up on here 3/4 of an inch as our guide. here. Okay, try that again. Okay, for some people, they like to put their cardstock on the inside of their chipboard. So when they lay their pieces down, like so, they would prefer to put their cardstock or their Tyvek over top here. But what I found is when you do that, you're putting unnecessary pressure on your on this part of your spine. So if you think about it, okay, you have your Tyvek, and then you have paper on top of that. So then when you fold this, like so, all of this that's in here is pushing towards the outside of your spine. So you don't want that because it will cause your paper to crack. But if you put your Tyvek on the outside of your chipboard, like so, the only thing on this side is paper. So when you bend your spine, the only thing pushing on your spine is paper, not Tyvek and paper, just paper. And fortunately, the Tyvek doesn't stretch. So therefore, when you fold your spine or fold your album cover like so, the Tyvek goes with it, and it doesn't create pressure on the cardstock, so your cardstock won't split, which happens so much that before I found Tyvek, I found that my hinges, my outside of my spine was splitting. So I was doing the glue thing, trying to keep it all intact. But doing it this way, I don't find I have to do that as much. Although sometimes I do run just a thin bead of glue up my spines, just to reinforce it. It depends on the cardstock that I'm using, because sometimes, even though it's 65, it might feel a little thinner than some. So just for an added measure, I put a little bit of glue on the outside if I don't remember to put it on the inside. Okay, so moving on, we're going to attach the Tyvek to the back to the cardstock. So we want it centered because our spine is going to be centered. Where's my ruler? There it is, hiding in the chipboard. Okay, so we have a space here of 7 and 7/8 inches. So we're going to make our line, so 7 7/8, so that's 3.5, mostly 3.75, 3 7/8. That would be this. That would be the middle, wouldn't it? 350. Yep, about the middle. A little more than 3 7/8. Okay, so we'll do the same down here. 3 7/8. My rule, I broke my favorite roll. I broke my favorite roller. I broke my favorite ruler, and so now I'm working with a half a ruler. And I can't find another one like it. This isn't a Tim Holtz. It's a West Warren, and I love it. Okay, so we have 5 inches here. So 2.5 is center. 2.5 is center. Okay, so we'll do that, and then we'll do that. So we get it all lined up perfectly. So that's the center of that. And now we're going to cover this with glue. It's not straight. I'll straighten it, but that's okay. So I'm going to cover the side with glue. go. Now when you're using glue, I like to make sure it's burnished and all the glue is flattened. Don't want any bubbles. I don't want any surprises down the road. So I want to make sure it's completely covered. Alright. Okay, so now we're going to lay the chipboard piece. So we just got to find the center of that. There we go. So this is 3 inches, so it's 1.5 inches. So we line that up there and there. Okay. And we'll glue this piece as well. People say you don't get much of a workout when you're doing scrapbooking. You do when it comes to the glue. My wrist and my hand get a lot of exercise squeezing glue bottles. How about yourself? Okay, so since we've got our marks in place, we can line this up so it's perfectly center. Okay, there we go. I'm going to flip this over and burnish. Again, making sure that all the glue is flat, no bubbles, no bumps. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now that we have this completely centered, we can add our chipboard pieces. Now with the chipboard pieces, we're going to use score tape or tape. If you have an ATC gun or what have you, then feel free. I'm going to be using 2 different types of tape on 2 different widths on this because it's just much easier to be able to do the center part with a tape that I can rip easily. But the outside edges, I'm going to use 7mm silk-line tape all the way around. I don't have one of those fancy things. I'm actually going to move this out of the way and make my job a little bit easier. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to put strips across the center of each of these pieces, evenly spaced, and this is to ensure that the cover stays intact on the page. I imagine when you're a scrapbooker, you find you have all your little pet peeves and you have to make sure that these things don't happen, and you go through your process. And my process is putting as much tape as I can fit in here within reason, so that when I put it on my cardstock, it's all going to stick and it's not going to lift off the cover. That's my goal, my aim. Sometimes I don't succeed, but I sure give it a good try anyways. So I'm going to go across here. Okay, one side done. We'll do this side. All right. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to need our pick. And I will bring my cardstock back. Don't want to lose my ruler because I need that for my guide. Okay, so we'll take off our tape. Okay, so now that we have all our tape off, I'm going to use my ruler as a guide. As I want, my ruler is 1/8 of an inch thick, so it's, to me, it's the perfect width for in here, to make sure I have the right gap distance in between my spine and my covers. So I'm going to lay that down. Okay. Burnish that side. Okay. So now I'm going to turn this around. I'm right-handed, so I work on the right side of my projects. Okay, now we'll take the tape off this one. So again, I'm going to take my ruler. If you don't have a ruler, 2 pieces of medium weight chipboard will give you a more precise width. Spacer, line up our chipboard with our spine. Okay. And there we have it. So that's down. And we'll flip this over. And burnish. We'll make sure this all sticks. All right. So now we're going to wrap it. So we're going to take our tape and we're going to run tape all around the edge of the chipboard and then on the outer edge of the cardstock. I won't be putting tape on the corners because I'll be mitering those. So around the chipboard from end to end, corner to corner, and the cardstock just to the ends of your chipboard, no further. Okay, and without stretching it, run it along the bottom or the edge and then adhere and snip. Okay, so now we have that all done. We're going to burnish all our tape. Okay, and now we're going to miter our corners. So when we miter our corners, we want to leave at least 1/8 of an inch between the end, the corner, and the edge of our cardstock where we cut it. So about maybe a little more than 1/8 of an inch. I just eyeball it. So, and mine are always bigger than 1/8 of an inch. So that's what you should have. Okay. And we're going to go around to all 4 corners. Okay. So now that's done. Now we're going to pre-fold our long sides. So we want to have them so we want them up against the hinges, up against the chipboard. So let's do something like this. Probably easier. Okay. So you'll have something like this. Can you see that? Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to take I'm going to remove my tape off one side. I have piles of tape backing all over my desk. I'm really bad for that. I'll get to it when I get to it. So I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to run a bead of glue along the edge of the top where the chipboard meets the cardstock. Okay. I'm going to lift this up. I have, you may have your own way of doing this, but I do it this way because I'm able to put more pressure on what I'm doing, and I can feel that it's right up against the chipboard at the top, and that's what I want. I don't want to take any chances of there being any warps in the paper, or not properly adhering down to the chipboard, so I do it this way. I have more control over what I'm doing when I do it that way. Okay, so now I'm going to burnish this area here, and then I'm going to stand this up, and I'm going to go along the top gently from one end to the other. And what this does is it gives it a more refined edge, a flat edge. You don't have, it's not rounded, it's not buckled, there's no wrinkles, it's just straight flush with the chipboard. It's a more cleaner edge. So I don't know if you can see it in the camera or not, but can you see that it's got a square edge to it? It's a much nicer, cleaner look. And now I'm going to do the other side the same way. Okay, so now we're going to do the ends, and when we mitered our edges, we now have a bit of an overhang, so we want to tuck it in to our corners. So we have this overhang here. See that right there? So what we're going to do is we're going to tuck that in. And how we do that is we take our score tool and we line it up with the outside edge of our album. I'm going to zoom in a bit for you so you can see it a bit better. I don't know if you see it better. It seems that every time I get close, my camera gets blurrier. Okay, so we're going to take our score tool here, and I'm just going to puff this up a bit. So I'm going to take my score tool and I'm going to bring it around, whoops, so that it tucks that in like so. So you'll have something like that. So see how it's tucked in around the chipboard. Okay, and we do that on the other side. Same way, take your score tool, line it up with your chipboard edge, and rotate it around like so. And then once it's in, you can apply a little bit more pressure to it. So now we're going to take the tape off. And again, we'll apply more glue along here. We want to maintain that clean edge all the way around our album. Like so. Okay. So now we're going to take this and we're going to fold it over. So. Okay. So on the corners where we did the fold over, let's see if I can get this. Where we did the fold over, we have, sometimes we have a little piece that sticks out over the edge, like it'll stick out over the edge here. So what I did with that was I used my score tool, and sometimes the glue that we put in here will seep into this part right here. So I used my tool and I flattened and rounded that edge so that it's not sticking up anymore. It blends with the rest of the album cover. Okay, so now we're going to do it again on this end. We're going to miter, or we're going to tuck our mitered corners in, and the same on the other side. Wrap it around, lift our tape, like so, and the same here. Run a bead of glue down the side where the chipboard meets the cardstock. And then we're going to lift our ends and we're going to make them flush up against the chipboard. Burnish. Same thing on the corners again. I'm rounding that and flattening it out. So before I do the next one, I'll show you what I mean by the piece sticking out at the end. You see that little lip, and that will get caught on something. So we want to flatten that out so that that doesn't happen. And now we'll do the same thing on the edge we did on the other three edges. Flatten that out so we have a nice clean edge. You don't want to do it too hard. Just gently go up and down the spine, or up and down the edge of the album. Back out again. Okay. So now here we are. We have this part of it complete, and what we're going to do now is we're going to add our cover to cover our spine. And I probably have, yep, I do. Okay, so we're going to cut this down to the right size. Now I had cut mine, the album is 8.5, and I cut mine down to 8 1/3. The inside cover portions of my album, I cut them at 8 1/3. I don't like the 1/8 inch gap on the bottom and the top. I prefer 1/16. But everybody's different and everybody has their own way and what they like. I prefer the 1/16. Okay. So now this is 1/16 and it's going to fit perfectly in here like so, with a little bit of a gap on the bottom and the top. Just glue, it'll cover. Okay, so I'm going to take my Silkline tape and I'm going to run a strip across the top and the bottom. Now we want this piece to be covered completely, because what happens if you don't cover it completely, where the spine meets the cover, when you go to fold this piece here, this will buckle in here and there'll be air bubbles and it doesn't look very nice. So we want a nice smooth transition between the two. And here we are. And I use it's acid-free carpet tape. I always have to really clean my scissors after using this stuff. But it's acid-free and it doesn't hurt the paper, so I'm okay with that. Okay. And another piece on the other side. this is these right here, because this is where this part will land right in the center of these two pieces. Okay, so now I'm going to run supplying up one side. Okay. And then down the middle. Okay. Oh, we're done here. Okay. And where's my gum eraser? Alright, so the reason I run when I'm using this tape is because, sorry, I missed some words there. When I'm using this tape, the reason I run the other tape around the outside is because this is cushy, so it squishes. So when there's pressure applied, it will eventually force its way out of the paper. So in order to keep it contained, I run silk tape all the way around, and that way it doesn't come out of the paper, or it doesn't come out from inside. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take off one end of this for now, because I want to make sure that I have it placed exactly where I want it. And it's really hard to see because I'm so short. So I'm going to put this over top, up there, make sure it's center. Okay, I'm content. Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to pull the tape off the inside. Pardon me, the backing. Not the tape. The backing. We need the tape. Okay. Alright. Okay, so now we're going to push that down. We want to go over it really well a couple of times. Make sure all the tape is down. Okay. Alright. Okay, so now I'm going to find this. There's where the spine meets the cover on either side, like so. And now we want to lift. So I'm going to zoom in so that you can see. Oh, I lost my zoom. Where did my zoom go? It's gone. Alright. I can't show you. Can't get close. Okay, so we want to lift it gently and slowly into the upright position. But you'll see that there's no bubbles. And it's a nice clean spine. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Lift. All the way up. And again, another clean spine. So that's what we want to do. We want to be able to make sure that there's no bubbles or buckles in here, and that it translates on the outside so that this is a nice clean edge. And next we'll do the hinges in the center. So we'll get to that. Hi everyone, we are going to do the hinges for my album. As I stated, my album spine is 3 inches wide, so my hinge is about 2 1/4 wide. The pages will be 8 inches tall, so my hinge will be just shy of 8 inches. I don't miter my corners, simply because I like the strength, so the pages just slide right on. I feel that the pages are more secure when they have a full hinge than having the corners mitered. It just seems weak to me, like it doesn't seem very strong. After you've mitered the corners of the page before you adhere it, then you miter the corners of the hinge. There's really not a lot there to secure the page, really, so and make it good and sturdy. So anyways, we'll move on to this. So we have, let's get rid of that. Okay, so the first hinge, which will be A, which is the top hinge, this is 4 pages. This hinge will be 2. So what I'm doing is I'm doing 75 for the hinge, and then 50 for the page, and then 75 for the gusset. So that's 2 inches right there. Then we're going to add another 75 for the hinge, and then a 1/2 inch for the page. So that makes it 3 1/4 inches. And then we're going to shave it off just a bit, like that much. That'll be enough. Just under 8 inches. Okay. The second one will be 75, and then 50, and then 75, 75. Whoops, I lost myself there. So yeah, so 75, and then 75, and then another 75, and then 75 again, and then 50. So that brings it up to 475, or 4 3/4. Okay. And then we're going to shave it just shy of 8, south of 8. Okay. And now we're going to score. Nope. There we go. Oops. Okay, so we're going to score 1/2 inch, 75, and then 75 again, and 75 again. So this is your page, your hinge, your gusset, your hinge, and your page. And we do the same thing here. 1/2 inch for your page, 75 for your hinge, and 75 for the right side of your gusset, and then 75 for the center gusset, 70 or 3/4, another 354. I'm sorry, I'm not reading this off to you properly. In my brain, I just count off numbers. So it's 1/2 inch, and then another 3/4 inch for your hinge, 3/4 inch for your right side of your gusset, which is still your gusset. Center gusset, 3/4 inch, and then another 3/4 inch for the left side of your gusset, and then another 3/4 inch for your hinge, and then a 1/2 inch for your page. So it would be 1/2 inch, 1 1/4 inches, 2 inches, 2 3/4 inches, 3 1/2 inches, 4 1/4 inches, and then 4 3/4 inches. And that would be that hinge. So now what we're going to do is on the indented side of your hinge, the side where you scored, not the perforated side, but this side. This is where we're going to put our tape for when we adhere it to the album spine. And I am going to just go along here. So I'm only putting tape on the 3 inside like this is your gusset. This entire span of the 3 is your gusset for the bottom hinge set. And then we're going to go up this way. It's important to keep your tape inside the score lines. You don't want it to go outside the score lines, because when you fold it, you don't want the tape to be showing. So you want to keep it inside the score lines, like so. Okay. Now when I'm ready to adhere this to the album, the spine, I will add my other tape. I can't do it at this point. But since I'm here, we're going to run tape on each of the hinges, or where we're going to put our page. And we want our tape as close as we can get to the outside of the page, the hinge where we're going to put our page, like as close as we can here. We don't want it close to the gusset, or the score line. My words are bad. The score line here, and then we want it to the outside edge of that, okay? And we're going to do both sides. This is to ensure that when we go to add our pages, and I don't know if any of you found this, I've found this as I've been making albums, that when you don't set a guideline for yourself when it comes to applying this tape on this hinge, that when you go and put your when you go to slide your page on, you get it down to here and you go, okay, that looks great, then you adhere it down, then you flip it over and your tape is exposed on the other side. So in order to prevent that from happening, if we can keep our tape as close to this edge as we can, then we have a less chance of that happening when we're trying to line our page up with the score line. Okay. Okay, so now we'll go to this one. Okay. So again, on the indented side here, we only have to do the centerpiece here in our gusset, in our hinge. So we can run, I will fully cover this. Making sure to keep your tape on the inside of your score lines, not to go over. Go here and here. All right. Okay, so this hinge system is Stack the Hinge, but I've expanded on it a little bit, so your pages will lay a little flatter. When I first started doing Stack the Hinge, It was just a matter of you didn't have all this space in here. Your hinge actually started here, and you slid your page on to that point. So I've just extended it and given it an extra 3/4 of an inch, because when I put it in my albums, I want my pages to lay properly, and this gives you basically that much space between pages, between the gusset, which is the same thickness or width as your hinge here. So you have that space. So you can utilize that space in a way that your pages lay flat, or you can decorate your pages without any worry of it being wider than your album spine. So because this is made to accommodate both the spine and your pages. So so what we're going to do now is, this is how I line up my spines, or my hinges. It's a really great way of doing it, because this corner is absolute, so it's not like I have to second guess that it's actually in the corner. So gust the tape side down on your scoreboard if you have one. I need my other glasses so I can actually see. Okay. So when we look at this, we see that our center gusset lines match up with 2. Actually, they don't, because this is put in this way. Okay, so that's better. So they line up with 2 and 2 3/4 right here. We want these 2 center gussets. So I'm going to bring this up so you can see what I mean. So you can see where they line up, 2 and 3/4. This gusset right here, the center gusset. Okay, so that's in place. So what we do is we take off our tape from our A hinge, the top hinge, and so we're going to take these 2 here, and we're going to line them up with 2 and 3/4. So that should land them right on top of the previous 2, the center gusset on the bottom hinge, perfectly. But we don't press all the way down to the end. We're going to turn it, and we're going to line these up again. Now, as before, we noted that these don't exactly line up, so we're going to line them up as close as we can get to where they should be. So there you have it. Now it's there. You can see the same width apart on both sides. And I'll show you. I'm going to burnish the inside. Okay, and now I'm going to take this, I'm going to fold it over, and you'll be able to see. Okay, so as you can see, there's the score line from the bottom one right there. You can see it right there. Okay, and that runs all the way down. It's perfectly straight and lines up from one end to the other. And that's how you get a straight hinge. The same on this side. All the way down. Okay, that's your hinge. So now I'm going to do this other side. Now the reason I do this is because the tape that I'm going to apply here has a cotton base on it, so it's a little squishy, and with enough pressure it will bleed, it'll it'll thin itself out and push out the sides. So I've surrounded it with sequin tape so that the tape stays inside these lines and it won't go over from pressure. I don't want that to happen. I've noticed that when I've done a couple of hinges that, ooh, I can see it, it's squeaking its way out, and I don't like that. It's acid-free tape, so it's not going to harm the paper or anything. It's just that its performance can be a live performance, I suppose you could say. All right. All right, so now I'm going to lay this in the center. That. Burnish it down a bit. Okay. And I want to bend these up a bit. Okay. So I'm going to put that aside just for a moment, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to put it in here. Okay. So, like I said, my hinges are, I believe, 2 1/4 wide. Yes, 2 1/4. So that leaves 3/8 of an inch on either side. So I want to line those up at 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to measure out 3/8. And then I'm going to draw a line down here. So I have a guide on this side. And then at the top, I want to measure 1/4 of an inch in, because I want an anchor. So this is my anchor right here. That's where my anchor is. So I want my hinge to start. I'm going to begin my point of my hinge there and follow the guidelines down so my hinge will be straight. Okay, so I'm going to place it here at the corner at my anchor, and I'm going to run it down, keeping my pencil line visible so I know that I'm on the right track. I don't want to go over it because then I won't be able to follow the line. So I'm keeping it above it. And there we have it. We have it. So okay, I don't know if you can see that. There's my corner. And I've followed it all the way down, and then you can see that at the top, and my pencil line is just above the hinge. So now I don't have to worry about having any crooked pages. As long as I line my pages up with my gusset lines, or my score lines on all my hinges, my pages should be straight. And that's how I make my album and my hinges. Hopefully I'll be back with the rest of it so I can show you how I make my pages. And actually, hi everyone. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the pages. I've already cut them all out. There's 4 of them, or 8 pieces you have to cut for this, and they are 8.5 by 8.5. So that means that they'll be 8 inches high, 8.5 wide. So I have already cut them, and I have scored them at 1/2 inch on one side. Doesn't matter which side because they're all 8.5 by 8.5. So I've scored them at 1/2 inch on one side on all 8 pieces. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take them, and because I'm right-handed, I'm going to work with the right side of the page. And I'm going to take my adhesive off of one, like this, and I'm going to take the other one, and I'm going to lay it over top, but I want to make sure it's flush at the bottom. Flush at the bottom here, and that it lines up with the score line on here. So you would have something like, so it basically, what it looks like in the end is you just scored it yourself. Okay, so I've done those two. I've also finished two, so, but I'm going to walk you through this. So what I'm going to get you to do is take the piece that's been folded here, and we're going to fold it over, like so, making sure that everything is flush all the way around, all the sides meet each other, and then we're going to spin it around this way and take this end here where the tape is, and we're going to fold it in on itself like so, give it a burnish, and then we're going to fold this over like so, make sure everything lines up perfectly, and when we're satisfied we're going to pull our tape out and press down, and there's your pocket page. I'll do it again with this one. Fold it over. You can see the tape at the top. And flip it over. Make sure everything is flush. And now we're going to turn it, open it, take our end of the tape, turn it up, fold it in on itself, burnish, fold it over, line everything up, and then we're going to pull the adhesive out like this. So there we have our pages. So these are done, all four, and I have to come back. Okay, so to finish out this part of the album, I wanted to show you the my reasoning behind my madness, I suppose. So, like I mentioned, I don't miter the edges, the corners of my hinges. I just make them just a tad shorter than the page, so I can just slide, line them up with along the score line. Bring this up so you can see. So I want to line them up with the score line, like that. So they'll be sitting just on this, on the outside of the score line, not the inside. And then when I adhere them, when I turn, then it will be the same on both sides. So they will match up perfectly on both sides. You can see that. And then you pull the tape off, because the tape is a good 1/8 of an inch or more from the score line. So that leaves me a fair bit of room to be able to make sure that my tape is covered. And that's how I do my hinges and my pages, so that they work together. Okay, so that ends this part of it. This part of my small tutorial on the album cover, the hinges, and my pages. I will probably come back and do the next tutorial will be on the flaps, folds, pockets, and the little surprises that we put on our pages, and maybe begin to decorate. So hopefully I can get that done by early next week. It really depends on my paper. I only got half of my paper for this album. I'm just waiting for the other half. So as soon as it comes in, we're in business. So thank you for watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial, or hopefully I shared some wisdom, or I don't know. I just hope you like it. Take care, be well, be safe, and I'll see you again really soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.